Hello, folks. Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. My name's Mark, and I'm here with Brent.
In studio. All right. Good morning, Mark.
Oh, hey. Oh, my microphone's falling down. There we go.
We'll get ourselves together now.
Yeah, I think we're good. Okay, welcome, Brent, to your own studio.
Yeah, I got a bit of a cold this morning, so I'm going to be hacking away over here.
Oh, muffin. Okay, so yeah, I'm still flying a little high on our last interview with Sam Cooper. I thought that was really good. Hopefully our listeners enjoyed it as well. If you haven't checked it out, please check it out. Sam Cooper on foreign corruption and influence, and that stuff is still going on. Still very much a live issue in Parliament. And there's another inquiry, the PIFI, P-I-F-I. There's a longer acronym, but there's still...
I'm convinced some of these acronyms you're making up.
You'll never know.
The PIFI and the NSI cop.
No, that one's real.
That one's real.
But anyways, there is another bigger inquiry that the Hogue Commission was part of that, that is going on, and there's more stuff to come from that. But Trudeau has been busy deflecting with India and hurling insults back and forth at the opposition.
I bought his book, so it's coming in the mail.
Whose book?
Sam Cooper, The Willful Blindness.
I thought you meant Trudeau.
Yeah, no, not Trudeau.
Don't support him.
We are having a campfire tonight.
Good. Maybe you can put Mark Carney's book in there.
Oh, man. Hey, that was a present. I'm going to re-gift it, maybe.
So, sort of along those lines, immigration is... there's been a few big announcements on immigration. Basically, we're going to cut back on immigration. And I just heard Trudeau, maybe a couple hours ago in Parliament, was talking about how these corporations and colleges are taking advantage and exploiting foreign people and putting Canadians out of jobs, right?
Okay, you got to clarify for people. So what's the announcement exactly that came out?
Well, so I don't know if he had an announcement tied to this exactly, other than we're going to do something.
Yeah.
They've already announced cutbacks to immigration.
But
there's something else coming around this.
And they announced the cutbacks because they know that there's too many immigrants coming in. Their sentiments changed around immigration. But who brought the immigrants in the first place?
Oh, man. Yeah, it's all a bit rich.
Yeah.
Right? Like... oh, there's a problem. We're going to solve this problem. It's like, you've been here for 10 years. You caused the problem.
Has he actually been here for 10 years?
Well, 9.5.
Oh, man.
Whatever, right? Like, there's nothing, you can't blame anything on Harper. And people don't like Stephen Harper. He was terrible.
Some of the immigrants weren't even born when Harper was in power.
But almost everything that he has said has come true. He's like, you can't let this guy, Trudeau, run a country. He has no idea what he's doing. Economically, it will be a disaster. And what are we looking at? Yeah, it took a while to turn this country into a disaster, but he's done it. On immigration, he also wanted a sensible policy around immigration, and we had that. And he said, you can't let this clown in, and because he's going to ruin, and he ruined that too. And now they have the nerve to say that, so now you see the narrative shift again. Trudeau is blaming corporations and colleges. That's their alliterative message here, that these are the guys who are actually causing the problem.
They were the ones actively recruiting. They saw an opportunity in the immigration policy, say, we can actually make some money here by going out and getting students to come.
Yeah. When you open the floodgates, people are going to take advantage.
Yeah.
And when you subsidize foreign workers, and when you're doing everything you can to encourage this behavior, and then when people actually take advantage of it, you turn around and blame them, only because somebody has shone a light on it and said, hey, we got a problem. And you're like, oh, I guess. I mean, that's politics, I suppose. We shouldn't be too surprised, right? That this
I'm not surprised.
No, I mean,
Do I look surprised?
No, so we should be surprised when a politician politics, I guess. But it's still infuriating, right? to shift the blame onto other people away from you. It's like you are the
yeah. What was the immigration announcement they just made?
Well, they're going to cut immigration by at least 100,000.
Yeah.
So that's from, I was looking at like side by side tweets, and 2 years ago, or 2022, Trudeau was like, we just brought in 405,000 immigrants. This is the most we've ever done. And, we're going to make Canada a shining beacon of blah, 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 and economic success, right? And it's clear that, like, no, it didn't work, guys. And so then the tweet to the side was like, clearly we have some problems, and we're going to fix these issues with immigration. And, it's caused problems here, here, and here. And it's like, yeah, because nobody could have seen that, right? Nobody told you this was going to happen.
Well, they're talking specifically about the permanent resident sector of the immigration. So it's not the whole, like that.
Well, they also want to reduce non-permanent residents.
Yeah.
So non-permanent residents, I think there's a by last, and I mean, nobody has an accurate count on this.
What did he say? He said we didn't get the balance quite right, Yeah.
It's not like you're making cookies.
Okay, we just
and you put a little extra sugar in, and you're like, that wasn't. It's like you use salt instead of sugar intentionally, and then you're like, well, the balance isn't quite right, but we're going to work towards correcting this imbalance. Like, anyways, 3.2 million non-permanent residents in Canada.
Just imagine trying to feed your kids dinner. It's like, I didn't get the balance quite right, but eat up anyways.
Well, you know what? I've done that. It's happened.
Then your whole family has diarrhea for what, like 3 weeks?
No, because you know what you don't do? You don't keep going down. You just like order some food in.
Yeah, throw it in the garbage.
So
we need to throw the country in the garbage. Get a new one?
No, we need to throw the immigration policy in the garbage and go back to the immigration policy that we had for years, which was sensible, right? Like, here's a good rule of thumb that I saw from a fella on Twitter. Don't let immigration outpace natural birth. Okay, that makes sense, right? And so we should talk about...
we should jump to...
Is that my phone? Yeah, we're going to jump back and forth a lot here, folks. But we could talk about fertility rates.
Yeah.
In the States.
They're just sky high.
Well, it depends where you are.
Yeah.
Right? So industrialized world, like, we're in trouble. We're... I was just looking at this. I don't have the chart here. But in North America, I think we're at 1.615 births per woman.
Right. Canada recorded its lowest in 2023, 1.26.
1.26?
26 children born per woman. That's what the CBC is telling me.
Cow.
That's from StatsCan.
So that's like, in case you're not so good at math, like, that's really low and bad. And that means your population's going to, like, die out in 50, 60 years, right? Because replacement rate is 2.
Yeah.
Because you have, contrary to popular belief, you need a man and a woman to make a baby. And, whether that baby is raised by different parents, you still need a man and a woman. And, male and female parts to make one baby. So if you make one baby, okay, great. That replaces one of the parents. If you make 2, that replaces both parents. Great. Assuming there's no,
the country doesn't grow, the country doesn't shrink.
Well, and assuming nobody dies before they reach adulthood and are able to reproduce again. So really, you want a birth rate that's slightly higher than that. And really, you want a birth rate that's a lot higher than that, right? We've gone from something like 1962 or something, I think, was the peak in North America anyways. Or no, worldwide, sorry. Worldwide. And it was something like 5.5 children per woman. Yeah,
now you talk to, like, a woman in childbearing years and you say 5.5 and they're like, woo, they look surprised.
Well, and that was the average, right? So for everybody who had 1, that meant there was somebody who had more.
Yeah, 11.
And I mean, it's the industrialized world has led that charge, right? So, and the number now is well below 2. I can't remember what it is worldwide, but something like 1.5. Europe was 1.4, and then you go look at Asia, it's like 4.1, right? And that's, in South Korea, for example, it's dramatically low as well. So the sort of what we'd call the Oriental part of Asia, is like China as well, right? Super low.
Yeah.
So then there's other parts of Asia that are very high, in Africa as well. But it's still a decline overall. And so Elon Musk has commented. We're going to talk about Elon Musk later too.
Okay.
But he's commented on this, right? Saying like, if we keep this up, there won't be people left in 100 years. Something like that, right? Population collapse.
There won't be people. He did his really sophisticated rocket math, and he figured out that there won't be people.
Okay, I'm simplifying it a bit. Okay, I'm sure he said it in a more mathematically correct way.
Right.
But that was the upshot of it, and it's true.
Yeah.
If we continue at the rate we are, because even third world countries, the birth rates are dramatically dropping. So that continues. Yeah, we're gonna.
What does that mean though? So like it goes down. You're saying we need one higher to have a country and to have, I guess, a flourishing economy.
Okay, this is the argument that nobody just seems to dispute, right?
Yeah.
That we need more people in Canada. Okay, fine. I think we could dispute that. Could we just get along with the same number we have for a while while we sort out housing and infrastructure and everything else?
Make a plan.
I think maybe we could. But the argument is that like our birth rate is low. And like people are saying this, the birth rate's low, so we have to bring in immigrants. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If the birth rate is low, what should we do about that? Right? And of course, we can't have more children, but somebody's having more children because where are the immigrants coming from?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we just have the more children here?
And the impact that has on housing is, the people who are living in a house, presumably having a kid. You don't have this massive infrastructure need, at least not right away.
No, and you can predict it because we do censuses and we, get birth certificates and all this stuff. We kind of know, we don't know how many immigrants are in the country, but we know how many children are born every year.
Yeah. Apparently
and then from that, you can plan, right? It's very easy to plan. Like, okay, in 20 years, we're going to need more of whatever because we're going to have more adults and there's going to be more people driving cars and more people needing health services and education.
Yeah, it's interesting because even when you talk about subdividing houses into smaller units, right? We've talked about that in the last few shows too when Ian was on. Like you have a house and just think about the neighborhood we're in right now, just residential houses. And, in the 60s, 70s, there's like a big family in the house and there was probably more people living in this neighborhood. Now
can you imagine the amount of kids on the streets and
stuff? It'd be crazy. And then now, like there's families and stuff, but I would say like half of the houses have a second unit. Some of them have third units, and there's fewer people. So you have like less people but more units. So you're like subdividing the infrastructure. It just seems so backwards, right? It's like if everyone just had a family and lived in the house, I don't know, we wouldn't need all kinds of immigrants to make up. Because every new immigrant is a new like housing unit, essentially. I mean, unless they're coming in a family, but all these students and all these like.
Well, we should talk about the gender balance, the gender gap, or the gender imbalance, right? What did you say? It was like there's 270,000.
Let me pull it up here.
More
270,000 more men than women in the 20 to 29-year-old cohort. So that is. Pretty astounding. That's up from in 2010. What was it here? Yeah, it's up a lot since 2010.
Oh, okay. Now who's got the complicated math?
Yeah, now I got to do the math. I can't even read the chart, Mark.
In any case, it's up a lot. We'll let Elon Musk do the math, okay?
Yeah.
But no, I mean,
in 50 years, we won't have humans.
People.
Yeah, people. Okay, sorry. Whoa, have we got like humans? Is that even a word anymore?
I don't know. Well, it's got the word man in it, so we can't use that. No, but I mean, normally in a population, it's usually within 1%.
Yeah.
Something like that of men to women, right? Like
that's
49 to 51, that kind of thing, because that's just how it works out, right?
Yeah.
Half and half.
Yeah, I'd imagine like the older cohort, right? Like there'd probably be more women than men in the oldest category.
Oh yeah, because men
will die earlier.
There's so many jokes I could make about men getting sick of listening to their wives nag them. And
Oh man, we're trying to create births, not.
yeah, that's not true. I don't believe that, by the way. It's just a joke.
Okay.
Okay, men die earlier because they do dumb things. I mean, that's and there's lots of videos on the internet.
Well, there's this argument too that we have all these men and not as many women in the young age sector, right? And they're angry because they were promised something when they came here.
Oh, here
right?
we go.
They said, "Hey guys, come to Canada. It's the land of opportunity. You're gonna have you'll be able to study here and then get a nice job and whatever." Like, look at that compared to where you came from.
Sure. So you see the news reports,
but they're going to be angry, Mark, when they come here and they realize that promise was false.
Okay, who made the promise, Brent? Did you promise it to them? I didn't. I didn't go over there and say, "Hey, come here." Okay, so yeah, we got news. You see the news reports of guys. It's primarily all young Indian men who are protesting and saying, like, we're not leaving, and they're living in tents in front of the legislature, and it's all over the country, right? Like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, here in Ontario as well, I'm sure in BC, are saying, like, yeah, like, what, guys, this is nonsense, because there's been other changes to immigration policies, and the government saying, like, yeah, we're not going to extend visas for non-permanent residents.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we're going to stop the process of just automatically extending them. So these guys are all up in arms, and they're saying, like, we were promised this and that. And it's like, hold on a second. No, you were not. Maybe some sleazy immigration consultant promised you this, and you believed it. Like, you paid him 10 or 20 grand, which you knew was fraud, which you knew was wrong. Yeah. But whatever. This is how you figure you can game the system. And now you're here, and now you're upset that the government's not going to let you stay. Well, the government of Canada, the people of Canada, never promised any of these people that you just get here any way you can and take a basket weaving course at Conestoga College and become a permanent resident. And then you're going to get citizenship here. Like, no, nobody ever said that.
Yeah.
And some of these folks I feel sorry for, because they were lied to in the process, and they were just told, like,
they're victims, Mark.
Look, some of them are. We've talked about that previously, right? How some of them get here and they're just victimized, often by members of their own community, to work in low-wage jobs, and even the immigration consultants, right? Like, just figure you're like a 17-year-old kid from some impoverished area in India, or, I mean, mainly it's India, right? There's other countries, there's China, and there's South America as well, but mainly these guys are the ones getting victimized, right? And they'll say, like, okay, you give us 20 grand, we're going to get you citizenship in Canada. Okay, you've got no prospects where you are.
See you later, as soon as they get
your family scrabbles together money, sends you over here, and then you get here and you realize, like, no, but is this more
willful blindness, so to speak? Like the Canadian,
it is on our part.
Well, yeah, the Canadian government's going, like, they know this is happening, that people are going there and recruiting.
100% they know,
because they created the conditions for these marketers and recruiters and, like, all the colleges, right, to go out there. Like, it's profitable for them, and they like, Canada thinks, oh, we need the immigrants. So,
well, and so if the people in government don't know, they should have known. And what was the I can't remember what the law was called, Hanlon's razor or something, right? Never ascribe to incompetence what you can ascribe to malice. No, the other way. Never ascribe to malice what you can ascribe to incompetence.
Yeah.
So don't assume the worst. Just assume that people are stupid. But I'm flipping that over. For a long time, I've ascribed it to incompetence on the Liberal government, but especially after talking to Sam Cooper, malice. I think it's like, this is intentional. Somebody's getting paid. And again, if they didn't know and they weren't getting paid, they should have known that opening the floodgates and relaxing all these policies, we've talked about it ad infinitum.
Well, so the reality is now we have 270,000 more young men than women. Which, like, that's not insignificant, I guess, because, like, you were saying, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to get married? And well, first of all, are they going to stay here, or are they going to have to go back? And then, are we going to deal with this?
Well, how are we going to get them back? Like, look at the optics on that, right? Yeah. These guys are saying we're not going back. So then what do? Well, you got to round them up and send them back, and that doesn't look good, right?
270,000.
You're going to have all these presumably white police officers getting like Indian men and throwing them in cuffs and sending them forcibly back to India. That, it doesn't look good, right?
Yeah.
No government wants to have that.
Just in
those
time
kind
for
of optics.
Trudeau to get out of office and someone else to get in.
Well, and he's going to hang on and hang on. He's not going to do it. He'll let Polyev take the fall for that. But like, what does that, like, what? Yeah. So what are the effects of that? This huge imbalance, right? Like, you can kind of figure that out, right? We've talked about the incel movement.
Do the
These
rocket
young men
math.
who can't get a date, and they just end up internalizing that and or externalizing it rather.
On the internet?
Well, on the internet, but also like not looking at themselves or looking at circumstances, but blaming women, saying women are the problem. And
There's not enough of them.
well, I mean, yeah, just do the math, right?
Yeah.
But if you like, that's just kind of natural. I'm not saying it's right, but this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to have a growing movement, which is going to cause more problems between men and women, and it's going to cause feminism to become more radical because they're like, oh, look at how men treat us. And it's like, yeah, some men are just like jerks, and worse than jerks, right? They hate women. Like, it's just, none of it's good. And like, guys, how could you not see? Guys, see, there I go again, being
We're in a pickle here, Mark.
people, why can't you see this? No, just there's not a lot of good that can come from it, right? And we've had all these years of, we gotta increase GDP, we have to bring in more immigrants, and now we see that it's causing problems, and that popular opinion is against it. Really, that's the driver here. But also, our economy's no better. Our economy is worse, actually. Yeah. So you've done this for years, and now you're reversing it. And like, do you think that's also going to make the economy better? No, it's also going to make it worse, right? Because you're sending capital back out. And I mean, maybe they were just masking the problem for years with increased immigration, and now we're going to pay the price as we send people out of the country. But it's just it's a bit of a mess.
I expect we'll pay the price with printed money. So how bad could it be, Mark?
Well, well, when you look at it, like, what's the answer? Print some more money.
Yeah.
Is really the answer. Like, what are you going to do, right? We've seen interest rates dropping.
Yeah, that's another story. I don't know. Did we talk about that already?
No, we haven't.
It's reduced.
Yeah, it's reduced. Like, it seems like, I don't know, every time we have a podcast,
There's an interest rate move.
Without a guest, there's an interest rate move. So yeah, is it yesterday or the day before?
Wednesday.
Yeah. Interest rates got dropped another 0.5%. So this is like a steep decline. And what was it? You got the stairs going up and elevator going down or something?
Yeah.
But we had the elevator going up, and now we have the elevator going back down. And you know what? I could see. So, okay, let's talk about, like, what's going to happen here, Brent?
Well, so there's the rewind. I wanted to kind of look at the interest rate cycle just for my own memory, but then maybe for listeners too. Like, you feel like you've been in a lot of pain for the last little bit. But yeah, so the rate's now at 3 3/4, down 0.5%. February 2022, it was at 0.25. Right? So 0.25 in February of 2022 was kind of the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And then from that point up, it's kind of jumped. So it went to 5% in 17 months. So July 2023 is like our peak, and then we've kind of been hovering around there. But that's a 4 3/4 point increase in 17 months.
And like thousands of percentage points.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it that way.
Yeah. And then in May, it was the start of the decrease. So like 10 months it was held at the peak, and then it started to decrease. So now everybody said, like, when it started going up, it wasn't soon enough, and now we're saying it's not soon enough to come down. And like, it's just,
And maybe it's going too far now. I don't know.
Yeah, but so if you zoom out like 10 years, we're up quite a bit.
Yeah.
But if you zoom out 30 years, like we're pretty low, right? Like, interest rates are low.
Okay, but then zoom out 60 years.
Yeah.
Like,
what is it?
You look at your frame of reference makes all the difference, right? But that's why it matters. Like, what is our situation today, right now? What's happening? And
well, headline inflation is 1.6%. So you're only losing purchasing power at 1.6%. According to the headlines, if you believe the headline.
And we don't. So, I mean, there's a couple things, right? I've been seeing more stuff about modern monetary theory pop up. I sent you.
Yeah, Mark's sending me these
primer
wonderful articles on modern monetary. I'm like, I got to get a new podcast host or co-host.
No, it's important to know like what people are saying.
Well, have our listeners heard of modern monetary theory?
I've talked about it. I mean, I'm sure people just kind of zone out because that's a lot of stuff. But basically, it's the idea that, how do I summarize this? Right, that government printing money is not a bad thing. They just got to keep a balance between GDP and
as
and
Trudeau would say, the balance has been slightly off lately.
Right, but what that doesn't, because they're like,
you just didn't get the balance right.
Yeah, essentially their argument is, look, everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's been fine for a long time.
Yeah.
So like, what are you guys worried about, right? This isn't kitchen table economics. This is like big boy economics.
Yeah.
And if you have a currency that you can control, then you can print as much of it as you want. And they do have some good points, right? That spending isn't determined by taxes. It's like, yeah, that's true. It's not. And that taxes really in the end don't matter so much, right? We always talk about our obligation to the you'll hear conservative politicians especially talk about like our obligation to the taxpayer and this and that. And like the MMT guys.
Yeah, their claim is that taxes do not fund government spending.
Which is true.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
Like part of it does. But most of it is just printed money. So like they have a point there.
Yeah.
Right. And so essentially their argument, I think, is like, it's fine, guys. Like it's worked for this long and it's going to keep working.
Yeah.
But that's not really a good,
to contrast that, so like
argument.
In this article you sent me, so that they contrast that premise of MMT, that philosophy, with Margaret Thatcher in the 80s and her comment around there is no such thing as public money, there is only taxpayers' money. So they would say that's bogus. Like, no, there's like taxpayers' money.
It's all public money.
Yeah, it's just public money.
Yeah. And taxes are just a way to
redistribute it and move it around.
But to incentivize behavior. Right. Like the carbon tax, right? Which, like, say whatever you want. This is exactly what it is, right? They're trying to incentivize certain behavior, like drive less, use less carbon-based products, which, like, you know, I don't agree with any of that, but that is what taxation is.
But it's interesting to dial back to our early series about money. Like, the government says that, you know, they print money into existence to fund these things. So you don't need taxes. Like, they're not actually creating any value. They're just creating currency units that are devaluing everything else. So by creating like one new unit, you've devalued all the other ones. So now you can spend that, but it has less purchasing power than the value that it's set it.
Well, there's an example, right, of, you need to build a bridge or something. So, again, I'm greatly oversimplifying this. This was somebody like way back when had this example. Maybe it was Henry Ford or somebody, but let's say you need $20 billion to build a bridge or something, right? So you don't have it. So you print it, you put that into the economy. So it's all spent and paid for, right? Like by people building the bridge. And then you just kind of, like, at the end of it, nothing. The bridge exists and people got paid and the economy's good. So there's no problem, right? You can just kind of retire that money and you have the asset and everything is great. It's like, well, wait a minute, guys. You're forgetting about the interest on the debt.
Yeah,
for that money
will accumulate
because
over
you're
time.
not just adding that money to the. Sometimes they are the open market operations, they call it, right? But the vast majority of debt, or the vast majority of that, is debt. It's financed, right? Because you can't do that too much. You can't just print and print and print, because you cause inflation, and that causes all kinds of other stuff. So the argument that it's just innocuous and that it's fine, like, is BS. Well, you look at U.S. Well, if that was the case, we wouldn't have a crisis with U.S. debt spending and Canadian too. But U.S.
That's not
gets
a
all
crisis, Mark.
You look at just interest payments. I know I can't even I'm
How many
apoplectic.
trillion? It's like over a trillion.
Well, it's their biggest expense now. It's
Yeah.
bigger than defense spending, right? And the debt grows.
Yeah, well, they have less to they have a lot less to
month.
defend if it's just a bunch of debt.
Yeah, $1 trillion every 100 days, and that's even accelerating. Is the U.S. debt growth, right? And you could say that's fine. They print it, they control it, whatever. But no, it comes with interest payments.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's eating up all of their revenues, which means more money printing. So it doesn't take a genius to see that, yeah, you can do it for a while. If you're 20 years old and you're working construction, you can eat McDonald's every day and it's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever, you're burning it off and it's not, the chemicals aren't great for you, but you're not going to notice
your
that for a
body
long
can handle
time.
it.
Eventually, you get the supervisor job and like, right? You just boom. And usually it's beer drinking, really.
Right.
But you just see this all the time in construction, right? Like eventually it will catch up with you. That's my point.
Yeah.
And we're on this junk food financial
Fiat.
and monetary policy, and it will catch up with us at some point. Just because it hasn't caught up with us now doesn't mean it won't.
Yeah.
Like it will.
Yeah,
And
but it won't in our generation, so who cares, Mark?
It will in our generation, right? We've
okay.
talked about debt cycles and a debt super cycle. We're at the end of it.
Yeah.
And it's all crashing down soon, Brent.
All right, so we'll have a modern monetary theory expert in here to have a healthy debate at some point.
Yeah, let's get Stephanie Kelton on here.
Taxes create a demand for the currency. Oh man.
It's true.
I know, but it's just like taxes help keep the currency strong. Taxes can help fight sin and reward charity. Taxes help manage inflation.
Yeah,
All right,
I mean
well,
that is the basics of modern
We weren't
monetary
going to talk
theory.
about this too much, but we're just kind of
Yeah, why not?
make our
Why
listeners
not?
aware of. How do we get on this topic again?
I don't know. We were talking about immigration and then,
The divergence between the U.S. and Canada. I don't know. That continues. I still want to have someone on, but we're headed for a weaker dollar in Canada, and
yeah. Are we? I mean, I've been saying that for a while, and we've been holding pretty like it's creeping,
yeah,
but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. That's for sure. I think it's like $1.38 or something right now, which it's been at $1.36 for quite a while.
yeah.
Now we're $1.38, so I haven't looked at it today, but yeah, eventually we're gonna drop. And I mean, somebody asked Chrystia Freeland about this too, and her excuse is like, well, actually the U.S. is the anomaly. They're doing really well. By comparison, Canada's not doing so bad to everybody else, just the U.S. It's like, well, the U.S. is right next to us. They're our biggest trading partner. Like, why are we not mirroring some of their growth to an extent, right? And I mean, we all know what the answer is, but not to say that the U.S. is all that in a bag of chips, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I I have to bring up some of the U.S. election shenanigans a little bit. I mean, I sorry, I should bring up the ad, but I won't. Anyways, the Harris-Walz campaign. I mean, this is Democrats in general, right? People derisively refer to them as the angry cat lady party, which is kind of true, right? If you look at the demographics of support, like older white women are big supporters of the Democrat Party.
Really? Okay.
And then like straight white men, they have a real problem reaching out to this demographic, and they've been trying, and it's so comical.
It's like, yeah, why do they have a problem reaching straight white men?
It's because they have a problem reaching straight white men. Like, it's no surprise with the feminization of our society, and that no, honestly, people on the and I don't like being so partisan, like left and right. Like, well, Christians, we're supposed to be, there can be left and there's right, and then there's Christian.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. But like some of these policies are just. And politics are just ridiculous. And so you can see on the left, they've gone so far that they have no idea what a man actually is.
Yeah.
Right? And we've talked about, like, when you don't have truth, then you lose all sense of reference, right? But they have no idea what a man is supposed to be. So you have, Tim Walz is out there trying to...
They must know. They're just
No,
like
they don't. They have no clue
They've lost.
what an actual man is or looks like because of their policies and just how far they've gone, right? So you have Tim Walz out there. I think that's why they had him on, because they're like, oh, he's kind of a manly guy. He was a soldier and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So let's get him on there. And, there's all kinds of problems with those claims, but just every time they run an ad or something, and I don't know if you've seen this, the Trump campaign now is just taking clips of Kamala Harris and no voice, no nothing. It's great production value because they don't have to do anything. They'll just take a clip of her speaking and then at the end say, this message was approved by the Trump for President campaign. It's beautiful. It's hilarious. And I know people don't like Trump, sure, fine, whatever, but I've never seen such a disastrous a public speaker as Kamala Harris. But anyways, you got Tim Walz out there he's going to like a pheasant hunt, right? And he's got this gun, he's a shotgun, resting it against his crotch, which is not good. If you have an accidental discharge, that's not where you want the butt of the gun to be. And he's just he's having trouble loading it, and he's muttering and making excuses and stuff, right? And it's just like, wow, okay, so this is like your manly man. Yeah. You had another Democrat the other day. They're at a gun range, some backyard range, and they're like 10, 20 meters away from these steel targets, and they've got rifles, like AR-15s, and they're shooting at them. And of course, doesn't one of the reporters get winged by shrapnel, right? And it's just like, you guys, they're trying to reach out to prove that, no, we're good. Kamala's like, I got a Glock. It's like, I would like to actually see that, right? She's saying she's a gun owner. They're trying to reach out. But the best was they had this commercial they ran of it's the Men for Harris campaign, I think, right? And normally when you see Men for Harris, it's these, and I hate to stereotype.
Just get it off your chest, Mark.
It's so stereotypical, but it's these fat, white, effeminate men who you would not call a man in most circumstances. Just saying yay, Harris. And they're doing some dance or just such a parody of what a man should be. But they had a commercial that they ran with Men for Harris, and it's all different kinds of men, right? And they're they have a mechanic, and they have a guy with horses and a guy with a pickup, and the guy's sitting legs crossed on the tailgate of his pickup. Just reminds me of Pride and Prejudice or something, where you have a woman sitting, how there was how women used to ride horses. That's how this guy's sitting on his pickup, right? And then and there's an old guy with a motorbike, and so anyways, somebody did some research.
Those are the four people who are men.
Four guys, right? This big, a morbidly obese guy. He's a mechanic. I eat carburetors for breakfast. I'm like, who wrote this? That's not the only thing you're eating for breakfast. But clearly, somebody did
not digesting them.
Anyways, they did a little bit of research, and of course, these are paid actors, so it's not actual Men for Harris. Two of them are gay. One of them has done adult films.
Oh man!
And he was the manliest of them. He was sitting on a bench in a gym, right? And the other guys are, just struggling leftist actors. One guy's in Antifa, and it's I think it was the Babylon Bee did a thing Harris campaign reaches out for straight white men to star in commercials, can't find any. And it's it's true. They cannot find a straight white man to support their campaign.
Well, what's the backlash here then?
The backlash is me laughing till I fall off my chair.
Well,
the backlash is these guys aren't voting for them. They've completely alienated.
Yeah, and they're desperate to try and get these votes.
Well, because they need every vote, right?
Yeah.
And you're seeing even among black men now.
So what are the polls like? What's your call?
It's still close, right?
I don't know how they make it neck and neck every year. It's neck and neck. Well, how?
I don't know.
All that's happened.
Maybe the Amish are going to swing it, right? The Amish in Pennsylvania, they're apparently coming out to vote for Trump because, yeah, I don't know. I mean, people are saying it's neck and neck. Some polls say like, oh, Trump's winning in a landslide. I don't really believe that either. I think it'll be fairly close, but it's looking more and more. It's so hard because I have my own perceptions.
Yeah.
And as you have probably just heard.
Yeah.
Right. But not everybody shares those.
No.
And the vast majority of people, like we're talking about, Matt Walsh did that film, What is a Woman? Right. To great comic effect, just asking people that question and people lose their minds. But like, what is a man? Right? Can people answer that question nowadays? And
we should write a book about that.
Anybody under 30 years old, I think, doesn't know because they've been indoctrinated by the education system to redefine male-female relations. And you're right, Brent, we should write a book.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert. Anyways, it's on one hand, it's comical to see. On the other hand, it's so sad because you see all these like young children. It's not just them, but also adults who are affected by sort of the zeitgeist, right? Like what's going on in our popular culture. Like if everybody is saying this, if the media is saying this, then this must be what it is.
It's an ongoing thing that we see in all different areas is people believing a lie or trying to think that the truth won't prevail. Like eventually it will, right? And we've seen that financially. We talk about that at length, right? When you create false money, it has all these side effects. And then when you create, when you abandon the truth in culture too, like you just end up in such a weird place. And then, you're eventually going to have a shock and it's going to, like the truth will come to light eventually.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about the fourth turning, right? If you're into that.
Well, so this is what I meant by
the end of the cycle.
Like the pushback is on the Christian side, there's like Christian nationalism. And I feel like there's another side to this that is going the opposite direction in a big way that might go too far. So,
well, that's what happens, right? There's action and reaction. And usually like neither of them is quite captures. And that's why I said, right? There's left, right, and there's Christian. And I mean that we could probably.
And when you say left, right, Christian, you don't mean like in a line in a particular order. It's like left and right on the sides, and Christian is a neutral party, or I just like you point with your hands, but if people aren't watching, they're like, right, left, and then
Christian, left, right, and then Christian is somewhere else, not even sort of in that. In that, like not on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Traditionally, it's we have, not even. So you go back a while, Christianity was more conservative, and that's, in favor of the patriarchy, and that's what feminism and all this modern theory has railed against, right? But we've seen to a large extent where Christianity, mainstream Christianity, has been co-opted by this thinking as well. But Christian nationalism. So you've got the Theo Bros online, and a lot of movement towards Christian nationalism, which we should do just a separate pod about that. But again, I think like you're saying,
to be a
it's a push too far to the right.
Yeah.
Right? To make primarily the US, we have, there's effects in Canada as well, but like let's make this a Christian nation again. Yeah. Which I agree. We have and this goes back to the immigration thing as well, right? Immigration is a problem in the States too. We are destroying our culture. And I'm not saying that like as a white man saying like there's too many brown people around, we're destroying our no, not at all. Because we've had lots of people from other ethnicities come into Canada and adapt quite well, and they're fine with our style of living, right? We're not importing people from Muslim countries saying we want Sharia law, right? It's people who are okay with, we have like the foundations of our of Western civilization. So that starts in Greco-Roman culture, and then that moves on to European culture, which then came over to North America. Yeah. Like that is the basis of our culture, of our law, of everything. And if we're going to change that wholesale, we're going to have massive societal upheaval. Why are we moving away from that? So let's move back towards that. But I'm not advocating for a Christian government.
Yeah, so that's the step too far.
Christians in government.
You go beyond that and you say, look, everything, it's a Christian nation.
Yeah.
And we almost exclude any. Yeah.
And so and I know like we may catch flack for this, and on the face of it, that sounds good. Let's return to Christian values and let's serve God. And why wouldn't you want to serve God every way you can? And it's like, yes, you can, but primarily that doesn't have to do with nation building. And we can look at Israel as an example, I think, of a nation that was theonomist, that was, also had central control. Right, they had kings who were, not Christian, but Jewish at the time, right? And like, how did that go?
Yeah,
just because you centralize, and usually this is centralized control as well, right? Centralizing around people, but maybe you could do it in a democracy. But if we see how democracy is corrupted and co-opted now, what's to say that if we had a Christian nationalist government, that it also wouldn't be corrupt? I guarantee you it would be corrupted. Yeah. And then, but well, here's the question: what would happen to the name of Jesus if we did that?
Yeah,
and then people would be able to point at them and say, "Look at what happened. They have a Christian nation, and they are worse than we are.
Yeah,
worse than it used to be."
But like being Christian, your kingdom is not of this world anyway. So like that's your starting point, right? You don't necessarily have to try and make a Christian country. You gotta have Christian influence in people's lives in the country. But to make your own, I don't know. It's a fine line to walk between, I guess it's a big line between the left and the Christian nationalists. But
another clue, I think. We'll wrap this part up soon. But another point is that Jesus didn't usher in a new government.
No,
he left a very corrupt government with a lot of questionable practices that we see today.
And he said, you're going to endure suffering.
Yeah. So if he didn't bring in a new government, then why are we? Yeah. And I'm not discounting the fact that we've had, the U.S., they could say it was founded on Christian values, but you can't say it was a nation that was guided, that was not a Christian nationalist government. Yeah. No way. They had values, but there was also corruption. They had their issues, and it was, a lot of Enlightenment values that didn't necessarily align with Christian values that formed that government. Anyway, so my point is, we're foolish to ignore the foundations of our society, because then we need to change our society wholesale.
Yeah.
Not to mention that, I think arguably Western society has been the most successful of any of the cultures in this world. And that's, prove me wrong. That's a big stretch. And I'm not saying I don't know what I'm not saying. I'm not trying to use this as a racist argument. I'm saying Western. I'm not saying white, right? But if you look at where immigration is to and from, there's your argument. People are moving away from non-Western countries to Western countries.
Yeah.
And, right. You can say, well, look at BRICS and look at, some of these things. So
what else do you got on your list there? Let's keep this moving.
Are you done with this?
Well, yeah.
This rant? Okay.
I know you wanted to talk about a few other things.
Well, okay. Let me just, I don't have the clip anymore.
How SpaceX may cause cancer or...
Well, it's amazing, right? You see, and again, I'm not Elon Musk fanboy. I'm not hero worshiping. He's got his flaws, and let's not go too far that way. But it is interesting to see what a determined person can do when they're not completely corrupted by the left. And you could argue that he's like a leftist that's kind of reformed now. But if you look at what SpaceX is doing. Right, they've got their Falcon Heavy boosters, so they've got these reusable boosters. What a concept, right? These rockets that can get you out into space and then come back and you reuse them. So the one they've used 18 times so far, I think. It just came back.
This is wild,
right? And you've got NASA. They're doing DEI training and looking at the effects of of climate on gender diversity, and like they're funding these studies, right? They're just
Are
completely
they looking
lost.
at that sort of stuff from outer space, or like what's the space component to that?
It was something to do with looking at heat signatures from space to determine
Whether the genders
just
are
like a complete nonsense
Oh,
DEI thing, right? You look at Boeing, who has sort of been the biggest like commercial partner to NASA, right? They're
But
like,
if you're pushing those ideologies, like to you, that's success, right?
what?
Like if you're pushing the DEI kind of ideologies,
Yeah,
then to you, NASA's a success. That's doing the right thing.
not to me.
No, but if you are, right? Like
Oh,
if you
yeah, if
support
you're-
those
oh, yeah,
ideologies,
100%.
you're like, oh, NASA's doing great.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, they're
And then, yeah,
yeah, doing great by every measure,
except for reality.
except for thank you.
Okay. We are going to have that as our slogan for the podcast. Doing great by every measure except for reality. That's the slogan of the Two Stewards Show.
Well, it's true. They're so enthralled to this DEI ideology, right? That is their focus, and that is a big measure of success, right? There's
Yeah.
people who value public companies by their diversity, but you
Yeah.
look at Boeing, it is falling apart, and we can't just say that that's DEI's fault, 100%. But like,
It'll bounce back. Boing.
love it. Brent got the first dad joke in. But I think it's symptomatic, right? When you take your eye off the ball and like.
Yeah.
And this is what SpaceX is doing, right? They're focusing on excellence and they're actually achieving stuff. NASA hasn't done anything in decades and decades and decades. And, you know, if you believe we went to the moon, sorry, I do believe we went to the moon, but it's one of my kids was talking to another kid. He's like, my dad doesn't think we went to the moon. It's like, oh boy, here we go. I don't know what grade that is, but anyways, you could say, so we went to the moon and then like progress stopped after that.
Yeah. in
Right.
the
And now
60s.
in 10 years, SpaceX has just like leapfrogged everybody. Just like, no, we got a problem. Let's solve it. Let's not focus on this other nonsense. And they've got these reusable rockets. They're landing them side by side. Like, it's amazing to see what they're doing and what, I mean, a lot of that can be it has to be attributed to Elon Musk. Maybe it's not all his brainchild, but he's the captain telling the ship where to go.
What about fiat money though? Is that funding him?
Oh yeah, this is
Because,
probably the most brilliant part of his of what he's doing with Tesla anyways, right? That's all fiat money. It's all government incentives for electric cars.
Building an empire on fiat money.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can criticize them for that, but what have real estate investors done? They've identified a trend and they've just surfed on that wave, right? And that's what Musk has done. He saw this trend. He's like, well, I'm not going to fight it. If I'm going to have a car company, let's do electric cars and get all the government subsidy money.
You said you wanted to have no carbon emissions. Well, I provide that. You know,
Exactly.
Yeah. I know. That's why I don't like Tesla. But
Now, some of his other, like Twitter, for example, I mean, this is all funded by Tesla and by Tesla money. But, you know, Twitter,
is
he's
just
bought it
fiat
and is, you know, you could argue he's restoring free speech. And that's an interesting thing that somebody else mentioned, right? Because everybody's screaming about how Twitter is like, we have to shut it down, we have to censor it, you know, and I'm looking at it going like, I think it's reasonably well balanced, right? There's arguments on both sides that I don't agree with. But when you're so far to the left, right? Let's say it's a spectrum of 0 to 100%, right? And when you're 97% to the left, well, a 50-50 discourse seems unfair.
Yeah.
It seems unreasonable,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so far out of where your mind is at that we don't know what men are, and we don't know what free speech is, and we don't know what rational discourse is anymore.
Yeah.
We're just so far as a society. So anyways, that's a little rant on Musk there.
Okay.
Oh, the one thing I wanted to talk about was this study, and maybe I'll just bring this up here. Where are we?
Oh.
U.S. study on puberty blockers goes unpublished because of politics, doctor says. I'll just read the second part of the headline. The leader of the long-running study said that the drugs did not improve mental health in children with gender distress and that the finding might be weaponized by opponents of the care.
It's like, what do you think
So this is a study that's probably, I don't know, 10 years old or something, where they took...
Well, 10 years old, like they've been doing the study for...
Yeah, they've been running it
like
for this long.
It's valid. Like it's a really...
I mean, yeah, as far as these studies can be valid,
like
right?
the
They've
results would be really nice to know.
They would. So here's J.K. Rowling, who, again, she's a hardcore feminist. I'm not in line with that, but she has been very vocal in her opposition to transgender ideology. So her comment on this is, we must not publish a study that says we're harming children, because people who say we're harming children will use the evidence that we're harming children, will use the study as evidence that we're harming children, which might make it difficult for us to continue harming children. and that's the crux of this, right? And that's essentially, they're saying we can't publish this because people are going to weaponize it and use it politically.
Yeah.
Which, if the results had been in their favor, absolutely they would have weaponized it and used it politically. But because it doesn't agree with what they, like this, putting children on puberty blockers, like doesn't, like we stopped I don't know if you know about the castrati.
No.
Right? What they used to do.
Do I want to know? Because this morning you told me about a few things I don't want to know about.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. You'll never unknow those things. No, this was a practice used, especially like in opera. So you would take a young boy who was a good singer and you would castrate him. And that would block the advent of puberty.
No kidding.
So that his voice would remain high and pure for a long time. Not indefinitely, but for a long time. Right. And it also had the effect of, there's no puberty. So, very low testosterone. So still very feminine, boyish features on this boy. Right. And, they eventually stopped that because they're like, yeah, it's not really cool, guys. For someone to have a high voice for a while is not worth it. Right. But this is what we're doing, right? We're chemically castrating children, and whether they're boys or girls.
We're hiding the results of these.
Yeah, well, and then they did a study to see, like, what happens when we do this? Like, can you think of? We talk about like Joseph Mengele and doing human experiments. We're doing human experiments on children
in real time.
And then when the results aren't good, we're gonna block those and hide them because, they don't agree with what we want to do. It's just like, it's satanic.
Puberty blockers,
that's what it is.
News blockers.
Right, you're ruining.
What other kind of blockers do we need?
Oh man,
Reality blockers. I don't know.
Anyways, you can just some of the stuff we talked about, I won't get into it, but just look up. If you want to go down this rabbit hole, look up Jazz Jennings and look up Jazz Jennings' mother. So this was a child who. What did you say? Kept opening his onesie?
Yeah, at the age of 3, would unbutton his onesie, and then his mom said, "Oh, that looks like you're trying to wear a dress." And so she took that. Yeah, you say mental health. Like she took that as like, I got to make this guy into a girl.
Yeah, and anybody who's had children is like, yeah, they're always unbuttoning stuff. They're pulling stuff. They're pulling their socks off like they do. I just saw a baby the other day, right?
Yeah.
Pulled the sock off, put it in the mouth.
Yeah.
Like
he's trying to be a sockhead,
Anyways, it's a set, and they did a reality show, right? So this was an attention-seeking mother who caused all this distress on her child, and the child is in distress. Look it up now. There's no doubt, and there's countless examples. What did I say?
That study's going to come out, though. Those study results that'll come out eventually.
I would hope so.
Pretty much tell you what it's going to say. So
yeah, well, you know what it is. It's not positive, right? But it's somebody said like having a transgender child is like having a vegan cat. Right? You know who's actually making the decisions, right? Yeah. So I don't know. We need to say more on that. But yeah, let's, I don't know. Do we have happy news, Brent?
Let me scroll down here. Sorry. The interest rate went down. So,
okay.
I mean, if you have a very narrow mind and you just care about your mortgage payment, then that's good.
I mean, that's what makes a difference in people's lives. That makes a big difference. So good news for variable rate holders. So good for you. I mean, the news isn't great. And the news will continue to be not great, but Jesus is coming back at some point. So
hopefully soon. Yeah.
Right? And what can we do? I mean, we'll go back to this theme, right? Where we have problems with fertility rates. Like, let's have more babies. And let's have more babies and teach them about Jesus and influence our society.
Just, like, we talked a little bit through this episode, just discover reality. Like, if you're living a lie and you're living in a culture filled with lies and politics that are based on lies, and like, try to find the truth. Where is that? Well, it's in the Bible, and then live out that, and you don't get distracted by all the other nonsense, right? And we've tried to use this show a little bit to shine the light on some of these, and like having Sam Cooper on was an interesting one for myself because I never kind of really heard of this stuff. But even just talking about money and, you know, the nature of money being corrupt in our time, right? That's going to have generational effects, and the more people that wake up to what's actually going on, like the more people that can take action.
Okay, but what is the taking action?
Well,
what do you think?
What do I think? I think probably the very first thing is educating yourself, because if you don't understand like what's going on, I mean, I'm just starting. I feel like I'm just starting to crack the top of the bottle off and go, okay, what's down here? When it comes to money, like that was an eye-opening thing for me to discover. You know, okay, our money system's corrupt, and we need to do something about it. Well, what can we do? Well, what options do we have?
Yeah.
Okay. To me, Bitcoin looks like an excellent solution. Not necessarily a solution to all the problems, and there are problems that Bitcoin might present that, you know, at first glance you don't really notice. But that's the thing. The nature of all these things in this broken world is that no one solution is going to work. It's not going to solve all the problems. Like, it always have, you know, corruption, and as long as human beings are involved, there will be corruption.
Well, and in spite of everything that anybody has ever tried ever, we're still in the same situation, right? We're no better than the Roman Empire. And their decadence. So I think it's personal responsibility. Yeah, and that's right. What stewardship you start with yourself. Yeah, you may not change the world, but by changing yourself and your situation, you can change the world if enough people do it. Take responsibility for yourself. Have lots of children. Let's go back to that one, but like, it's just being borne out by everything that we're seeing, right? We need more children who know about Jesus and will tell other people and will live their lives that way.
Yeah, because you keep saying you have lots of children. There's like part 2 to that is actually like raising the children.
Oh no, my wife does that.
Okay. We need to have another podcast. We
my
need to
wife
get your wife on the podcast.
I can't. She's too tired. No, you're right. Yeah, actually raising them and that's a whole adventure in itself, right? Yeah. But anyways, you can make, and you know, if you're past that age or you're not in that spot, like, you still can be personally responsible and comport yourself in a way. And like, all of this is not new, right? You open the Bible and it tells you what to do.
Yeah, you read
that's the solution. Yeah. So
I don't know. To find contentment. So like the position of a steward, I keep coming back to is, well, okay, we've been given this stuff, and we say stuff, it's like your wealth, your possessions, but your family, your relationships, your time, your everything, health, and
brains for some of us, and still waiting for mine. But acknowledging that, like, where that came from, right? And this is the difference between a Christian and someone who doesn't have faith is, they just think that they're entitled to it, right? If you don't believe that where that came from is, you know, God's providence, like God in his grace gave you these things, then you'll live a selfish kind of like entitled attitude, right? Even if it's subtle and whatever, like, you know, I'm thankful, but, you know, really, this is my vacation, now get out of here, kind of like, no, you know what I mean? Like, as a Christian, those things come only by God's grace. And then if that's the truth, and it is, then it's like, what do you do with it? You got to wake up every morning and go, okay, like, this world is crazy, it's upside down, but we actually have the truth, and it's not going away, it's not changing for eternity, and God's given me health, time, relationships, like all kinds of things to do to steward them, right? And it's like, if you don't take that posture, in a sense, you're saying, I'd rather be squandering what God has in his grace given me, right? Yeah. So if you hear the lies of the culture and you're always bombarded with this and immersed in it, never immersed in scripture and never
going to Bible study or like integrating yourself into the community of faith, and like you're being fed these lies, and it's just subtle over time. Even watching movies, like I have a hard time watching a movie these days, man. I don't know.
It's true.
That's my rant.
Oh,
I don't know. It just you're just fed subtle lies all the time, and the more you're in the truth, the more you can see the lies, right? Like, and not to say that by any means like I'm perfect or whatever. Like that's far from it. It's just if you're connected to the source of truth, then you'll see and be able to identify lies and call them out for what they are. And
yeah, 100%. I mean, you gotta.
Whenever I do a rant, Mark just yawns.
Sorry, I fell asleep. What did you say? No, like
said the U.S. election and some sort of.
No, I know. I get pretty worked up about external stuff, but like at the end of the day, that doesn't keep me awake at night.
Yeah, that's why I tend to not focus on it. Like you always come in here, oh, I read the news. It's like, I don't really read the news. Like, I don't know what's going on. Oh, that doesn't really impact me. Okay, well, move on with my life. But it gets you worked up.
A little bit.
Well, it gets me worked up anyways if I were doing it.
I mean, because we have a duty, I think, in our current circumstances to, if we can make change or if we can, do that.
That's just almost like this stewardship duty. Like if you have been blessed with this, like what is your answer to God when he says, I gave you, like, no, I just buried my talents in the ground. Thank you very much, God. Like, you gave me all these healthy years with a great, stable support system and all this money and time and like abilities. And I just, I like to watch NFL or whatever, like every time I get a chance and eat more pizza. It's like not bad things, but sorry.
Let's not talk bad about pizza, Brent. Okay? No, I mean, okay, so we got to wrap this up, but the advent of the internet and so much information available has definitely changed things, right? So you can find injustice in any part of the world that you want, and you can be upset about, and you can rail against it, and you can protest it, and you can do all this stuff, right? Whereas, I don't know, 50, 60, 100 years ago, it was more localized.
Yeah.
And I think you almost had to focus more on like your own life, your own responsibility. Because number one, the government was going to bail you out. And number two, you just know all the stuff that was going on. And like, I don't think our brains really are meant to know all of this stuff all the time. And if you can drive yourself crazy and be depressed very quickly if you're taking in all this stuff. So I know I go off, but I'm also able to like forget about it.
Yeah.
Just like whatever, we deal with it. And then the stuff that's important, like stuff in Canada that's more important, like the US stuff, whatever. It's geopolitical, it's macro, it affects us. We should know what's going on. But the stuff that's in Canada and the stuff that's more local, that will have more of an effect on me, right? Because that's where we have the ability to make a change as well.
Yeah. So, and you want to make wise decisions with what you've been given too, right? And that's So good. I think we nailed it.
Nailed it. Okay. Well, nothing left to say. So, thanks for listening to several rants on this one, folks. And until next time,
steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
And if you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We'll see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.